guys, what's up? It's Srini. So today's episode is with Claudia on negotiation, and she's a world-renowned trainer, and she's from Harvard Law School. And besides that, she's an amazing person. She's my mentor, and I have genuine affection for her. And you will enjoy the episode. It's just half an hour long, so all those who have been complaining that my episodes are too long, it's for you. And sorry, I haven't uploaded a new episode in the last 2 weeks. I realized that there was just too much of me out there, and I believe I was like compromising on the quality, and I didn't think it was my authentic self. So this episode is amazing. So enjoy. Please subscribe.
Hey guys, maybe I should start a podcast.
No.
No. No.
ये दिल लगी भी तेरे दिल को दिल लगी ना लगे
Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to another episode of Fun with Law. And today I have a very, very eminent lawyer, an international lawyer, and a very, very dear mentor for me, Miss Claudia Winkler. She is a Harvard graduate and she also runs the Negotiation Academy, which is one of the premier online platforms to learn about negotiation. And I must tell you, as she herself says, she's half Indian. She spends a lot of time here. She knows she knows all about the law firms and she knows everything. So, and I have questions from you guys also that you sent me. And yeah, so Claudia, tell us about yourself. What's your current profile and things like that?
Well, now you've already shared I'm half Indian. I said that as a joke earlier. I'm just realizing I didn't even show you. I'm eating chili chocolate as we speak. So not only have I acquired the culture, but also the taste. So now that I'm locked in Austria, and I'm actually supposed to be in Mumbai at this very moment, spending a whole month between Delhi and Mumbai, so that got cancelled. But more about me. Well, my main work is offline. So Negotiation Academy is an online and offline company. I started out mainly offline. Now it's going more and more online as the rest of the world. But what I've been doing for the last 6 years is travel around the world and train negotiation skills to lawyers in various big firms, pretty much on every continent. Every now and then we run a special event like our Future Legal Leadership Academy in Bali. Good memories. That's where I met Jalaj, who was a participant there last year. So it's very great to reconnect and catch up.
Yeah, thank you. But thanks for staying in touch. You were not just there then. You've always been there to guide us. So
it's so exciting to hear all the things that you're doing now with everything that we've talked about. That's what makes me do what I'm doing.
Yeah, thank you. So Claudia, now going into your life, you're building a business, you're running a successful organization, plus you also travel a lot. So, and you do in-person consultancies and take coaching sessions. So can you tell me what's your typical week like in your life?
Well, right now it starts off in pajamas every morning, and most of the time you don't change the bottom part of it all throughout the day. But normally it is a lot more traveling. So the way I make it work is that I manage to put my travels together in batches. So I'm not going back and forward Europe, Asia all the time, but I'll dedicate 2 months where I know I'll be in India, and I'll coordinate with all my law firms, let them know I'm there, and then just go day by day by day. Come back to Europe, do my European trainings there, go to Brazil. So it's okay to manage because I don't go for every training separately. I've managed to coordinate. So my typical day is either completely on the road, 2 months in one suitcase, where all of your friends are asking me, Claudia, how on earth can you find anything that you're wearing in your suitcase? Because everything's either black or blue. This is probably the most colorful piece of clothing I own. I've never thought about it that way. I have to reconsider. Some more green, red, and yellow would work well, but that's my usual life. Or I'm at home, and then there's a lot of the preparation work and the business development going on daily.
Yeah. But Claudia, one thing I want to ask you, so you work with a lot of law firms and a lot of students, and you work across continents. So what are the same questions you get whether you're in Brazil or India? Like when do you feel that people are same everywhere? That's something that I find very fascinating, because you work with people. You're not just working with an organization. You're a people's person. So what are the similarities you see?
That's an interesting question, because at the beginning when I started traveling, I thought, oh wow, this is going to be challenging because negotiation styles are going to be so different in Australia than Ethiopia, Brazil, India, Norway. And it turned out, interestingly so, that we're more, in a sense, we're more similar than we're different, because the mistakes that everyone's making in their negotiations are the exact same. Now, we'll express ourselves differently, we'll express our ideas differently, we'll engage differently, but the basic mistakes of not listening enough, not preparing any options, not digging deep enough into what is it that really matters to the other side, they're completely the same. So the same kind of cases that I use all over the world for our exercises, you'll see people making the exact same mistakes. So that's a fascinating thing, that it seems we all have that in common.
All right. Also, Claudia, your journey, I've listened to your journey in person, where you so passionately tell us how you got into Harvard, and and how you manage the funds for it. So what are the 2-3 turning points in your journey?
The key turning points. Well, my journey started really early, so I'm someone who plans ahead very much. I don't know if that's a very Austrian skill. Parts of it, I guess it is. So the 2-3 key turning points. The first turning point definitely was my first internship in a law firm. So this is more than 20 years ago now. Yeah, pretty much 20 years ago now. So I was Say again?
When I was born.
When you were born, basically. That's right. That makes me feel really old now. Yeah, that 20 just hit me. So that was the first time I worked in a law firm, and no one in my family had been a lawyer. So for me, this was a first of any sort of desk job in that sense. My parents grow wine. We have a winery in the countryside. So this was the moment when I realized that there is so much else to do to help people, rather than if you grow up in the countryside, there isn't much connection that you have with the business professionals. And that first time in this law firm made me realize that law really is a tool that helps you connect with other people and help other people. And that was the turning point for me when I decided at 14, now I've given you my age, that I wanted to become a lawyer and be a partner in a law firm. And that's the turning point that then got me to study really hard, go to school, get all the possible educations I could. Until the second turning point, I would say, was when I decided that I wanted to travel after high school. So when I was 18, I annoyed the hell out of my grandfather. So he would allow me to go on a round the world trip. So I had already convinced my parents, but I needed someone to also finance it. So I annoyed my granddad, and I went on a round the world trip. That was my first big negotiation in my life, I think, or the biggest at that point, to allow me to go on a round the world trip for half a year. And that's what really changed my entire perspective, because so far I had seen Austria and a bit beyond on vacation, but this really allowed me to spend a couple of weeks or months in different countries, different cultures. And that's when I also visited Harvard Law School, and that's where I got to speak to the people there and just experience the feeling and the vibe that this place has. And that was really inspiring. That inspired me to go ahead and see what there could be done if there wasn't a chance that I shouldn't be going there as well. So that was the other key turning point that led me down the path that I am today.
Yeah, that's a very, it's a very inspiring story, because I really like 2 things about you. One, that, your story of how you manage the funds for Harvard. And number 2, when you talk about being a woman in law, and how, because in India, we think Western world is way ahead of us when it comes to women's rights and when it comes to being a woman in general, your life. But even you had challenges that ways. So, those 2 big challenges that you had, if you could throw some light on those.
So I don't think, so you want to, I'm gathering you want to hear about how did I manage the financing, because you remember the story I told you in Bali, and then we want to talk about women in law. So 2 different things. The financing, the magic trick on my financing was go and be a negotiator. So I got the acceptance letter into Harvard, and I started writing to every institution, every public agency, every law firm, every bank, from the mayor to the president of my small town or of my country. I wrote over 100 letters, like actual, back in the 2000s, paper letters in the mail, telling them that I had been accepted into Harvard Law School and about my background and why I wanted to go there. And basically saying, now I've got this admission letter, but who's going to pay for it? Can you help me?
Yeah.
And as a negotiator, of course, offering them things in return. So saying, I'd be happy to later on share my experience with your customers or write a blog for your journal or whatever, small things. And by doing that, I actually managed to gather small amounts from a lot of people that were willing to help. So there were law firms, there were governmental institutions, there were special funds. So I did a lot of that to be able to fund my way through the LLM degree. So that's that story.
Yeah. That still inspires me. Right? It's so like how you have to break from the mold and just go ahead and market yourself. That I will do it.
Just be persistent. Half of life's achievement, I'm a firm believer, is simply persistency and thinking outside the box. You can make anything happen as long as you just fight hard enough for it.
Yeah.
And the same is true because you asked about the stereotypes about women. It's quite hard to capture that in a concise way. So the way I grew up was on the Austrian countryside. So it was a very patriarchal society. It was very, very traditional in that sense. So I grew up in an environment where the men of my family would say things like, well, if you go to university, who's going to clean our shoes? So it wasn't like everyone's equal here. We try and pretend we're somewhat ahead in gender equality. I think that's not necessarily true. So I've just done a keynote for the International Women's Day a month ago. And I did some research, and it turned out that Austrian law firms have only 10% women equity partners. 10%. That's pretty poor. And then if you compare it to countries that are further ahead with that, like the US or the UK or Australia, we've got 20. Amazing, 20%. Also not that great. But then you talk to some of the law firms in India, and you have firms where there's 50% women partners.
Yeah.
You guessed it.
Yeah.
ASB has 50%. So it really depends on, it's not so much the culture of a country, I feel, but the culture of companies. So you can see that if you have strong women leaders on top, the whole culture of a company will switch in a direction that will automatically draw and support women in a different way and work in the way that they perform better. So I think it's really about finding ways to get that culture fit together. I don't have a recipe for how to do it. All I'm saying is that I feel like it doesn't depend so much on the country as it depends on the culture of the individual institution. So that's where on our little scale we might have to start working.
Yeah, and also, this last question of this personal segment, I ask this question to, a lot of people, and I get very, very insightful answers. So what has been your biggest failure in life?
My biggest failure story actually turns in a circle in itself.
Yeah.
So this is 2000 and I don't know, like 6 years ago, something like that. I was in New York and I was trying to find out what to do with my life now. So I had just come out of Harvard. I'd worked in New York for a year, and I was thinking, well, what do I do next? I didn't know about the negotiation trainer, how to pull that off just as of yet. And I had an job interview for a job at the Harvard Negotiation Project.
Yeah.
And from the job post read as if they had simply drafted it for me. I was so sure that I was going to have that job. And in the interview, the woman asked me, what was your biggest failure and what have you learned from it? And I had no answer. I completely blanked. Bad preparation on my side. That's a standard answer. You need to have an answer to that. And I had nothing to say about it. The best I could come up with, and unfortunately the best I still can come up with, is that I believe I have a happy memory. So a lot of the things that look like failure at the moment, my brain will reframe into what have I learned out of that? Because I've been rejected there, then I took an extra 3 steps of effort and I made that into a win on some other. So my brain works on a I win or I learn perspective. So I had no story, and I still don't have a good story on this today, other than this very story, because I think the question, what was your biggest failure, got me to fail that interview, not getting that job at Harvard, which then again, I wouldn't consider a failure now, because that was the kick into my backside to go and do my own thing and become self-employed and start my own company. So I don't believe in that. I will ask that same question. It's an unfair one of failures, but I don't have a good story myself. So I'm glad I'm not interviewing for jobs anymore at this
but
life.
no, I wish my therapist. When my therapist says, "I wish you had a happy mind," because I always remember the bad memories. This happened. Again, I'm so.
That's more typical. Yeah.
Like, I recently interned with a law firm for an interview, and the interview went okay, but I thought it went very bad, and I started I started blaming myself, and later I got selected for it, but but still that thing is there. I think that's a way. Also, just that. Also, with regard to Harvard, you're of that generation of Harvard, because you are now probably in your 30s, so people must be. How's it like to be a Harvard alumni? With people doing so well, because it's Harvard, right? So you must be seeing all your alumni all over the world doing all kinds of things.
What is it like to be an alumni? I think it's like every other school. It's what you make out of it. It's not so much. I mean, it's nice to have the brand, gives you a bit of extra credibility for people who don't know you yet, but in the end, it doesn't make a difference. Like the myth that everyone who comes out of Harvard Law School will instantly have a job and have any job they like is simply not true. My colleagues who all wanted to stay in law firms in New York, I think my year about 7 or 10 people actually managed to get a job. It's just as competitive as it is for everyone else. You're just competing with a different crowd. So it's not like you just do whatever you want. It's a bit of an extra credibility, but then you have to make something out of it. So as everyone wherever you graduate from, you have to take initiative. You have to be the best you can. You have to set high standards for yourself, and you have to be proactive in achieving your goals. It doesn't make a difference what school you come out of.
Yeah, that's true. So now moving on to the next segment, which is purely with regard to negotiation, your area of expertise. So you worked at the New York International Arbitration Center, right? So how often do you feel when we are looking at ADR, we miss out the proper, skills that a negotiation needs? We feel that a lot of people do not have the skills who are into ADR. So do you feel that?
I believe so. I think the challenge is the moment we see a case as lawyers is when people have already, when the roof is on fire, when it's too late or not that easy anymore to get out of that situation. So if people were to have generally better skills in dealing with conflict or avoiding conflict, we wouldn't see as many cases as lawyers. And then if we, as lawyers, again, had better skills in solving disputes by talking about it and by negotiating about it, we would have way less cases going into arbitration, going into litigation. So if every one of us was a natural mediator, so to say, and we would always first sit down and think about, how is this really key to your business? How does this really matter? What else could we do? What potential solutions could we find? If we had that level of thinking ingrained in us when we go through law school, which is absolutely not what they're teaching us, then we would see different solutions.
Yeah. Also, now, Claudia, you purely teach negotiation and things like that. However, I feel law students today, and including myself, don't you feel negotiation is a complementary skill, which will only...
law is a complementary skill.
No, not as a skill, but but I feel that that a lot. Well, you just...
You can't say that to a law student. I'm sorry. I apologize.
I'm questioning my every decision right now. No.
That's taking anything. That's breaking everything down into questions. No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, it's good. Fun with law. No, make these jokes. It's good. So the point is that, negotiation is a skill that only helps you if you have your basics right. So a lot of students in India, they will have done 20 competitions. They would be good at 15 debates and things like that. But their basic law is not clear. And I include myself in that. Sometimes I feel I focus too much on these skills and not actually sat and read down proper law. So don't you feel sometimes we lose sight of what is that basic skill to learn, these complementary skills?
So the reason I say law is the complementary skill is, and the reason that question hits me from a different angle, is that usually the people I work with are very high level lawyers. So it's a level where people have their law down. You don't make it to a top law firm. You don't make it to a top law school unless you have the law down. So that today, that is a prerequisite. The market is so competitive. If you're not good at the legal foundations, you're not even playing in that arena where negotiation skills really become critical. So yes, of course, first of all, you have to be a good lawyer. You cannot weasel your way through law school, not know what you're talking about, and then just expect by being a nice sweet talker, you'll make a big career. But that is so fundamentally, that's such a foundation to how I see it, that I say law is the complementary thing, because you have to only specialize in one area of law. But negotiation is such an umbrella skill. You apply that in every context, in every situation. You only have to master one area of law, but negotiation you need for everything you do. It's the marketing around your job. It's the customer acquisition around your job. It's how you counsel your clients. It's how you talk to the judge. It's how you talk to the other party. Law, you only have to master one area. But yes, that does come first, especially if you're still a law student, and you need to focus first on becoming a good lawyer.
Yeah. Also, what are the 3 basic concepts you feel, with regard to negotiation that everyone should know? Like, that is the bread butter of negotiation.
Well, I should ask you that now. See how much you remember from our 1 week dispute resolution course last year.
Right. Okay, I will tell you. I will tell you 2 or 3 important things that I apply to my daily lives. All right. One is the concept of BATNA, best alternative to a negotiated agreement. If you know that while you are doing anything, so like if you know what is my best alternative if this doesn't happen, you're always in that position where no one can beat you down, because you feel okay, if this doesn't happen, what my alternative is. So obviously that plan should be there. And you also told us one thing about when an offer is offensive, it's okay to leave the table. While you're negotiating, and if there's a deal and the dispute is around $100 million and the negotiation can place from 50 to 150 million. But if the person says, I will charge you $1 billion for it, it's offensive. And earlier I used to feel that, we have to sit down, negotiate and things like that. But no, you have to not be offensive while making an offer. So, these
you as the person who makes the offer have to make sure you're not being offensive. And on the other side, you can decide, do I really want to engage in that? Do I really need to be on this table, or do I want to leave? Yeah.
And also, I'm forgetting one more, the term for it, but there's something called where you fix the price. Like you say, okay, this is my thing and I'm not going ahead with it. I'm forgetting the exact technical term for it. It's called hankering. It's the, I don't know. It's
anchoring effect, you mean? When you make the first offer, because it will influence the perception of where the negotiation is going, and it will influence the bargaining range where you're headed, rather than sitting back and waiting for the other side to make a first offer.
That's true. I always have these 3 concepts in my mind always. Yeah. Like even if I apply to internships, I have the BATNA that okay, if this doesn't work out, this has to happen. So that I don't appear to be very eager. So I'm a more calmer person when these things are happening. Yeah.
More level fielded as a conversation. Well, that's brilliant. There you have your 3 concepts. You're hired. Co-teacher on board.
Oh, thank you. Thanks a lot. All right, we move on to the next question now. But I think, because there's so many interesting things about you, I don't want to waste time on things that are already, covered.
That are online on every course.
Yeah, because the basic course on negotiation is free on your website. And I want the viewers to actually go and look at that. Like, honestly, if nothing comes out of it and they go on your website just to take that course, it's a brilliant course. I mean, that teaches you things. And obviously, there are more advanced courses and those are also, I'm sure, quite brilliant. But also, you have been the director of CDRC Vienna, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you witness young people from all around the world that, basically, especially students who are from probably a student from Brazil and India. You've seen that. So do you feel any changing trends in negotiation that you, or ADR in general, where you feel, okay, 10 years back, I wasn't seeing this. Like now I see that. So what's the changing,
So we've only done CDRC now for 5 years.
Yeah.
But I think the one thing that I notice is how much more drive, how much more momentum the whole field of ADR bring. So we decided to call it CDRC because we wanted to name it consensual dispute resolution.
Yeah.
Because it's mediation and negotiation only. Arbitration, we back then already did not consider it an alternative method anymore because it's basically like litigation. It will cost as much, it will take almost as long depending on the country you're in. So we consciously decided to call it consensual dispute resolution. And it wasn't, and there was one paper out there back then from a professor in New York and she called it consensual dispute resolution. We took that same term, but it wasn't very known. So in the last 5 years, that has definitely changed. People know way better what the concepts of negotiation are. People know much more about mediation. The number of students that we have applying each year is increasing exponentially. So we've had to insert some very tough selection criteria and a lot of work up front where you have to submit your video and your bios and everything gets globally ranked. It's become a tough selection process because so many students around the world are now interested in learning about it. So we're seeing that it's becoming more popular, and not only in the student population, but also law firms have been much more receiving of the thought that we can solve disputes consensually. I don't know if that is so much of their own realization. Some law firms are very proactive, pushing it themselves. But I think to a large extent, this comes from the corporate world, because the corporate world is the player in the market who says this is taking too long, this is costing too much, why this is not even getting us a black and white solution, we need something much more customized for our business. So they're pushing law firms to use it more, and you can really see that a tiny little bit year after year we're seeing more of it. So that's a fabulous trend that's happening while we're doing the same thing. I don't think we have anything to do with it much, but this is what is happening alongside us.
Also, I'm interested in law and tech in general. So one thing that is coming out of it is smart contracts, where essentially you minimize the concept of negotiation because you already have a set of criterias, and then execution of the project takes place on that. So do you sometimes feel that the smart contracts will reduce negotiation considerably?
I guess so. I'm not a big techie as such, but I realized that with the smart contracts itself, you may not have to negotiate. So your negotiation skills will not be much needed on that front. On the other side, there's a shift where on other areas, you will need negotiation skills much more than you ever did before, because the work that's going to be left for lawyers to do after AI has changed our landscape dramatically in the next 5 to 10 years, that will be the one area that requires the most people skills. That will be consulting with clients, that will be negotiating with the counterpart. Everything that doesn't go into smart something will go into people, other. So the people that will stand out in 10 years from now are going to be the ones that are extra good on the social components, on the communication skills, on the negotiation skills, because everything that really will still need people is the creative parts, is the people parts, is the relationship parts. So it will become, on some levels, you will not need it for some things because they'll be done automatically. But for everything else, it'll be highly invaluable skills because that's the one thing computers will never be able to do.
I always say that we are in a relationship business rather than, I think every lawyer should know that, like, you are not just in the knowledge business, you're in a relationship business. Claudia, now with COVID-19, in general, the concept of lawyering will change because due to mass adoption of work from home. And also people will realize, it's doable. It's doable to be at home and then work, especially when you do academic work. It really doesn't matter where you're working from, as long as you have the resources that you have. So do you feel there are any additional skills that we will require in terms of negotiation when we are working at home rather than when we are meeting face to face?
I think you need to get better at some of the fundamentals. At the moment, for example, preparation, which is always an important aspect of negotiation, but at the moment it's particularly important because we're in such an environment where you have very little hard data, you have loads of uncertainty, you do not know what tomorrow will bring, let alone next week or 1 or 2 months out. So you have a lot of uncertainty. So you need to take into account, you need to try get the best data you can, and then you also need to learn to be much better a communicator because it's not as easy to communicate via an online channel. You're not there in person, you may not even have a face if you're on the phone, so your communication needs to be a lot more effective. So preparation, communication, but then also you need to get much better at putting yourself in other people's shoes, and especially now in this moment where the world is in panic. A lot of businesses are struggling to survive. So everyone's negotiating from a state of panic and of fear, and you're not making any good deals out of panic and fear. It's just a downward spiral. Everyone is risk averse. You're not making any good creative, long lasting deals out of that. So you need to learn to control and work with these emotions, bring them out to the table and learn to be creative nevertheless and look into the future. So it is much more challenging at the moment. You have to be already very skilled and working a lot on getting better and better at these 3 areas.
Yeah, that's important. Anything else you would like to add or discuss with regard to? Also, one last question. You work with a lot of Indian law firms, especially tier ones. What are the major problems you see with them that they're really missing out on? Because I have worked in one, and I'll be going to work with a few, but I've noticed in general that they are not investing in human resource development. Because I actually feel that, because a lot of people are leaving law, they treat them like machines. It's very easy when lawyers just leave firms, especially young lawyers, they leave after 2 years, 3 years. They just see them as a money-making machine and they just leave them. So do you feel that there somewhere is wrong with the law firm culture in India?
I actually cannot confirm what you're saying at all. And I guess that's the nature of my work, because the firms that I work with are the ones that are investing in the knowledge of their people and are investing in building up their skills. So the firms that I work with have very big people development programs. So we do negotiation workshops. We also do client communication workshops. We work on topics like advancement for women in law firms. So the ones that I work with are very active. So I work very closely with HR, and I can see how much they are trying to keep people involved and get everyone trained, even though the numbers are pretty large. So it can be difficult sometimes, but I think they're very active. And I think the problems are with negotiation are, as I said earlier, pretty much the same as everywhere in the world. I think we're much too focused on win-lose scenarios, because in law school we get trained who is right, and we try to prove that we're right. So we're missing out that bigger picture. There's that win-win solution, that pie, exactly, that pie that we're trying to grow, that value that we're trying to bring to the customer. We're missing out on that. And that's something that I see in Indian law firms, just as every other law firm around the world. So that's the one key thing that in all my trainings, I try and drill home to the very bottom of it, that there is so much more we can do as lawyers and we can achieve as lawyers if we look at it much beyond what the positions are.
All right. That's a very good answer, and you will not lose any clients now.
I wasn't planning on. I'm not going to be able to come visit you as often if you do that.
No, we love law firms. So, all right. So I think thanks Claudia for being there. And honestly, I think Claudia has so much online material. This wasn't needed for her, but honestly, thank you for being there for me, and thanks for giving my little platform, boost, because people know you all around the world. So you being as a guest, I think will help me a lot, and I'll be honest that way. But thank you, and I know you're always there. And anyone, and I would like to say that to people, anyone who's interested in negotiation on any kind of general career advice, also go to negotiationacademy.com, do the courses, and even if you don't do the courses, you can always contact Claudia, because she'll give you the best advice she can. And thank you.
Unless she's counseling Jalaj all week and then she doesn't have any time. No, Jalaj, it's actually absolutely been an honor. I'm happy to do this with you. You're one of my favorite students. It's been a great pleasure working with you, and I've been so proud to see what all you've done in the last couple of years, and what all from the little knowledge pieces that we've shared in that week, of course, what all you've applied and how you've used it to become a better lawyer and a better person. So I'm really, really proud of it. So I'm happy to be here. Yeah. And I hope we'll be in touch in the future much more often.
All right. Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.